everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video, I am excited to share with you some really fun information about a food slash herb that so many of us love. And I don't think we pay enough attention to all the health benefits. We just love it for the taste, the flavor, the earthiness of it. And what I'm talking about is beet, and in particular, beetroot. Now, there are so many beautiful reasons to add this amazing food, not just into your diet, but consider it as a supplement. And I'm going to tell you why, because this is something I've been using and eating almost my whole entire life, but I've used it specifically for exercise endurance, and it's in one of the supplements I formulated because it is so amazing. It has some incredible benefits for exercise endurance and stamina, what it does for your blood and your circulation, the oxygen, everything that it does for the human body, just to give it grounding and stamina. It's just one of my favorites. Beets are one of those things that you might not realize has the amount and depth of nutrition and benefit for the human body that it does. You might just think, oh, this is something that's delicious. You go to a fancy restaurant and they might make a goat cheese and roasted beet salad. And honestly, that's one of my favorite ways. In fact, for a long time, I would always get the beet salad, and then I would always ask myself, why don't I make these more often at home? And it's one of those things that you have to make a conscious effort. It's a little bit of a pain because when you chop up a beet, you prepare a beet to bake it or roast it or whatever you're going to do with it, even juice it. It can make your fingers, it can stain your fingers red. And it is a little bit of a pain until you just get in the habit. Sometimes you might want to wear gloves, and it will help prevent your fingers from staining, even though the stain goes away quite quickly. Now, beets have been around and used by humans for more than 4,000 years, and they have an interesting little history that I'm going to share with you. Now, the plant species is Beta vulgaris, and it's Betavulgaris. So, Beta vulgaris. Now, it's native to the Mediterranean, parts of Western Asia, and North Africa. And here's the interesting thing. The ancient use of it, which was the early civilizations like the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans, they cultivated beets, but not for the root, but for the greens. That was what was used in the beginning. And then the root that we eat today, it became popular much later around the Roman era, and when it was used medicinally and specifically for digestion and blood-related issues. And if you think about the signature of plants and how they match what humans use them for, beets, because of the dark red, a lot of humans, early humans, before the plants were studied, they just automatically made the connection that it was good for blood and circulation. And it is, which is amazing. What happened is by the Middle Ages, beetroot had spread across Europe and eventually worldwide. Humans have been consuming some form of the beetroot for over 4,000 years, which I don't know too many people who don't like it. I do know a person, he is actually my son, who after his daughter was born almost 15 years ago, he went on a 60-day juice fast. And one of the things that he juiced extensively, and all the green juicing and all the juicing that he did, was beets. And after he broke his fast, he now finds that he just can't stomach the taste or the smell of beets. And I think it might be time for him to revisit that, just because I think when we overdo something, or we're doing something for a specific reason, for health reasons or losing weight or whatever we're doing something like that for, and we use especially such an earthy, strong root vegetable like beets, it can kind of get in our psyche and in our taste buds like, all right, we've had enough of that. And sometimes it's associated with, something hard that you're doing, like if you start to not like a food. The cool thing about beets, and I'm going to focus on the root today, is that it has a ton of health benefits. The information I share with you is not meant to be medical advice. This is meant to entertain and educate you only. So always do your due diligence. I do have a couple of reasons why you might want to take a look at possibly not adding beets into your diet. And if you're one of those people, you're probably already aware of that. But this is one of those interesting plants to give a disclaimer on because it is a food and it's consumed by millions of people every single day with only health benefits. Here's my favorite list of the health benefits of beetroot. One of the things I love most about it is its cardiovascular benefits. It's rich in dietary nitrates, which convert into nitric oxide in the body, which is really important. And what that does is it helps lower blood pressure, it improves blood vessel dilation, and it helps to enhance circulation, which this was discovered thousands of years ago when people started using the beetroot as part of digestion and helping with blood circulation. Okay, now this is the second one, exercise performance. This is a big one. And this is one that I have been using beetroot, especially in supplement form, for a lot of years, because the first 20 years of my adulthood, I was in the fitness industry. Even after I started Barlow Herbal, I still continued to teach exercise classes for 20 more years. So I did exercise classes, personal training. I did that for almost 40 years and I still work out every day. This is a huge part of my lifestyle. And beetroot found its way into my supplement routine probably 30 plus years ago. And I used to add it in powder form into my smoothie. And then about 2014, I formulated a product called Endurance, and it's got cordyceps mushrooms, it's got reishi mushrooms, yerba mate, and then beetroot powder. These are all in this beautiful capsule formula called Endurance, and it's specifically to help improve exercise endurance. And we're not talking about the fast burst like muscle, we're talking about length of time. In fact, what I typically do is I take 2 Endurance about an hour before I go on my 5-mile walk, which I do that every single day. And I let the capsule go in, I let it dissolve and digest, and it gives me all of this nutrition that helps to literally boost exercise endurance. So this might be something you want to take a look at, but this is one of my favorite things about beetroot. So the nitric oxide improves oxygen delivery to the muscles. That's what it does, okay? The results are this: increased endurance, it reduces oxygen costs during exercise, okay? And it gives you better stamina in aerobic activities. You know, for most of my aerobic teaching career, I taught classes that involved aerobics, heart rate up. In fact, I started teaching step classes when they became popular. I used to do like the high intensity aerobics before there was a step. And when step was invented and it came out, I was one of the first amongst many instructors who started teaching step classes. And that is the last class I taught in March of 2020 was my Saturday morning dance party step class. I didn't know it was my last class, but this was a high intensity cardiovascular class. And it gives you that aerobic endurance. So if you're a hiker, if you're a wannabe hiker, if you bike, if you want to improve your exercise endurance, your aerobic capacity, then beetroot is one of those plants that you should pay special attention to. You can add it into your diet quite easily, okay? In food wise or in supplement wise. So this is why beetroot is popular in all these endurance sports. Now, it also has a lot of antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. So it contains pigments that are responsible for the color. So it helps reduce oxidative stress. It can help lower chronic inflammation. And these are two of the things I really love about it, because think about if you reduce inflammation, that's going to be massive. And the antioxidant is, who doesn't want something that provides antioxidant? Think anti-aging, think cellular growth, good for your skin, all of that. Now, beetroot is also good for brain health. It improves blood flow, which may extend to the brain. So the potential benefits are this: you have better cognitive function, especially for older adults, and reduced risk of cognitive decline. Now, that one is still being studied. And that's what I love about bringing in all the tradition of thousands of years of history of use and then modern technology, all the scientific studies we can bring to this that just kind of confirm what we intuitively know as human beings when we consume things like beets. It's also known for blood and iron support. So it contains iron and folate, supports red blood cell production, even though it's not known as an iron powerhouse. There are other things like spinach that has a little more iron in it, but it does improve iron in your blood, okay? It's also good for digestive health because it is a great source of fiber, and it supports your gut health and longevity, and also regularity. Metabolic support. Who doesn't want their metabolism to stay good and steady, especially as we age? You know, that's something that is very, very important. So it's low calorie and it's nutrient dense, and it's very filling. It's so delicious. It may help with weight management and your metabolic markers, which are really important. Now you can get beetroot in powder form, which is the most popular, capsules or tablets. You can juice them. You can even get a beet juice shot. In fact, if you have a favorite juicing place that does fresh juices, almost every city and town at this point has a place where you can go get a juice shot, like a green juice or, a beet shot or a wheatgrass shot. And I would start incorporating beetroot juice, freshly squeezed, into your juicing routine if you ever are a person who likes to visit those kind of places. In fact, what I like to do when I travel is find a local juicing spot. And they always have beet. In fact, what I love is getting a big green juice with a shot of beet juice in it. So delicious. And it just makes every cell in your body sing. If you've ever done fresh juicing, you know what I'm talking about. Here are some of the reasons that people take supplements beetroot. It's performance enhancement, blood pressure support, recovery support. There is a pump effect. Like, I notice a difference when I skip. Like if I travel and I don't bring my endurance with me, it's very subtle because at this point, my supplement routine is dialed in. My exercise routine is dialed in. This has just been a part of my lifestyle, not just from when I was growing up. My parents always had us active and hiking and outside, and we were always really active as kids. And I fell in love with fitness and exercise as a teenager. In fact, I started teaching classes when I was 18. So this has been something that has just been a part of my lifestyle. So if I don't have my beetroot in my endurance that I take, I can just kind of tell the difference. It's not something where I'm lagging, but there is a difference, a subtle difference in just the nutrition that my body is used to when I take this before I work out. There's a mechanism behind why beets do this. And there's a simplified pathway. There's dietary nitrates in the beetroot, and they're converted into nitrates via oral bacteria. Okay, so they need to go through the digestive process, if you think about that. Now they're converted into nitric oxide in the body. Okay, that's the pathway. Now, nitric oxide is this. It relaxes blood vessels, so that's vasodilation. It improves oxygen efficiency in the mitochondria. Okay, now think about how massive that is. So it helps to improve the efficiency that oxygen has in your mitochondria. Every single cell has mitochondria, which makes a huge difference in your ability to have energy so that you can exercise. I know so many people who have a desire to get moving and to really get their body going because they know how good it is for them, but finding the energy sometimes is difficult. And this is where something as simple and humble as beetroot can make a huge difference. And it might be as simple as getting it in supplement form first. You can even get this you can buy a supplement that's just pure beetroot powder and mix it in with a smoothie, mix it into a glass of water, drink it down. Boom, you're done. Super easy, right? So here's what the net effect of this is, okay? You can do the same work using less oxygen. So it's a little bit less effort. It gives your body the ability to be more efficient with oxygen, which every cell in your body needs oxygen. And when you start exercising and moving, you increase circulation, you improve oxygenation, everything changes. Why not use Mother Nature to help you? The research the modern research generally shows this. The strongest benefits are endurance exercise, and it's less consistent for short, explosive strength training. Now, there's some really cool, quirky facts about beetroot that I wanted to share with you. I think that this is where it gets really fun. Okay, so about 10 to 15% of people experience something called beeturia, which is pink or red urine after eating beets. Okay, and this makes some people panic, especially if you're not used to eating beets, but maybe, like I said, you're out in a restaurant, you have the beet salad, and then either that night or the next morning, your urine is red or pink. A lot of people panic because they don't realize that that's what's happening. It doesn't happen to everyone. In fact, only 10 to 15% of the people experience that, and it has a name, beeturia, okay? And here's what I found. It's not dangerous, and it depends on the stomach acid levels and your gut microbiome. So interestingly, it can sometimes correlate with your iron metabolism differences, okay, which is why doctors sometimes occasionally will pay attention to it. Okay, so it might show that something's a touch off. Beetroot is a natural dye, as I'm sure you've noticed if you've ever handled beets, if you've gotten it on your clothes. This is something that's been used for thousands of years as a natural dye, which of course makes sense, right? So it's historically used to dye fabrics, food, and even early cosmetics like cheeks and lipstick, okay? It oxidizes quickly, which is interesting. So listen to this. So the color can shift from deep purple red to brown over time. So if you dye a piece of fabric, and the color will shift. Even in cosmetics, what I found is when they used to use it, it would change the color of the lipstick or the cheek, the blush over time. You would actually get a little bit darker, richer color as it would oxidize, which makes sense, right? And then this, because of their deep red color, beets have been used as stage blood in theater, a vegetarian alternative to culinary plating, okay, which is really good to use if you want something dramatic. If you're going to make a charcuterie board and you want the color and the drama, beets always add that. And I know I've seen roasted beets, with little toothpicks in them, maybe even chunks of roasted beets with some goat cheese, maybe some pistachios on top. Obviously, one of my favorite beet salads is that. Some chefs use beet puree to mimic rare meat juices. So they'll actually puree it and mimic if you've got a rare meat that you want to serve. And of course, beets are so versatile in the kitchen. If you're a chef, I'd love to know, or even just considered a kitchen chef in your own home, what do you love to do most with beets? What's your most creative dish? To me, it's the beet salad with goat cheese. Beet juice stains everything, sometimes your hands. The same pigments that stain surfaces can actually fade quickly on your skin due to the enzymes and oils in your skin. Now, here's something interesting, which I really love because I grow beets in my yard. Now, beets need to be grown from seeds because it's very difficult to get a start of a beet. First of all, they don't really sell them because if you were to plant a start, then it needs to be disturbed when you transplant it into your garden. So I've never known anybody that uses starts. Everyone that's ever grown beets always uses the seeds, and they grow quickly. They grow it takes about 50 to 70 days to be able to harvest your beets. Now they like loose soil. They like a sunny spot. They'll tolerate a little bit of shade, but they like lots of moisture, but they don't like to be soggy. They like to be, kept watered, nice and sunny. You can go thin out your beets so that they have room to grow. And this to me is one of the most satisfying things about growing vegetables and different things in your garden. Now, there are a couple things to keep in mind. Beets can lower your blood pressure a little. So if you have already low blood pressure, this is something maybe just to use a touch of caution on. Stay in check with your blood pressure. And it can interact with certain medications. So if you're on prescription medications, just know your own body, do your own due diligence. This is where your common sense, your intuition, checking in with a functional medicine doctor. This is where it's always interesting to me because beets are a food and beets nourish us and feed us. But we do live in a time where we put a lot of unnatural prescription medications into our body, right? We know that. So the goal is to get off as many as you can, do it safely as you can, and hopefully live a very natural, healthy life, just using the foods and all of the gifts that Mother Nature and God gave us. Is a high oxalate content in beets, especially in the leaves. So if you're going to use the beet greens, and you have issues with kidney stones or any type of stones, especially kidney stones, you might want to either keep an eye on that or make sure that you cook your greens, because it will dissipate the oxalates out of your greens. Okay. And then here's an interesting thing. The bacteria in your mouth matters in the way your body processes beets. And I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. If you use an antibacterial mouthwash, okay, it will actually mess up the conversion of the nutrients that happens when you consume beets. So this would be another good reason, unless you absolutely have to for health reasons, to use an antibacterial kind of a chemical-based mouthwash. I would be very careful about that, especially if you want to keep all the nutrition that is in something like beets, okay? So here's the bottom line. Beetroot is one of the few foods that directly impacts nitric oxide production. It's one of the very few foods that directly impact that. It makes it uniquely valuable for cardiovascular health and endurance performance. Its long history from ancient medicine to modern sports nutrition is largely tied to the same core effect. It improves blood flow. So I'd love to know what you think about beets. Do you love it as much as I do? Do you grow it? Is this something that is an absolute part of a staple in your garden? I know I do a row of beets and a row of carrots. And sometimes the onions will get in there if I remember to plant them along with the garlic. But beets always make it into my garden. And luckily, I have access to farmers markets if I don't produce as much as I want to consume. And also we live in a time where we can go to the grocery store and we can get organic fruits and vegetables almost all year round. So let me know what you think about beetroot. Were there some things that you didn't know about it? I think this is an interesting thing to add into your nutrition and see how your health improves. And if you're a person who's been wanting to really jump on board the exercise train, because you need to as a human being, we need to move, we need to get our heart rate up, we need to get our cheeks flushed from just the movement and the joy of being alive, then this might be just the thing you need. So thanks for tuning in today, guys, and we will see you in the next one.